All right, deep divers, buckle up because we are diving into a news article today that's got fireworks. More fireworks than like a 4th of July celebration.
Oh, I like that. I like where this is going. 4th of July.
You know, we're talking about Kamala Harris's closing campaign speech, where she made this comparison that has everyone buzzing.
Everyone is buzzing, for sure.
She called Trump a petty tyrant.
Oh, yeah.
Not just any tyrant, but she specifically compared him to King George III.
Oh,
I
wow.
know, right?
Yeah.
Juicy stuff. So are you ready to, like, dissect this rhetorical grenade?
Let's get into it. I'm ready.
Let's dive in.
What's really interesting here is the timing of this. This speech drops just days before the election, with polls showing Harris and Trump like neck and neck. The article paints this picture of this massive rally, tens of thousands of people just crammed into the ellipse.
75,000 people to be exact.
Whoa.
Can you imagine the energy? And the location itself, the ellipse, adds a whole other layer. This is the same spot where Trump held that rally that led to the January 6th Capitol riot.
Oh, yeah. Talk about a loaded choice of venue, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Harris's campaign strategically picked this location to drive home a very specific point. It's a visual reminder of what's at stake in this election. It's a stark contrast between her vision for America and the chaos of that day.
Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say the petty tyrant in the room.
Right.
Harris did not hold back at all.
No, she did not.
Comparing Trump to King George III, she called him unstable. She said that he's obsessed with revenge and that he craves unchecked power. Now, King George III, as some historians suggest, wasn't exactly known for his mental stability.
Right, and by making that comparison, she is subtly raising doubts about Trump's fitness for office. Like, his ability to handle the pressure cooker that is the presidency. That's a bold move. It definitely packs a punch.
But she doesn't stop there. She brings up January 6th again, reminding everyone of Trump's actions that day, including his alleged indifference to the threats against Mike Pence.
Yeah.
The article even mentions Trump reportedly wanting to pardon those involved in the Capitol attack.
And that raises so many questions about the potential legal and political fallout from something like that. Could a president actually pardon people who participated in an attack on the government? What would that mean for our democracy and the peaceful transfer of power? These are big, hairy questions.
Heavy stuff indeed. But amidst all the drama, Harris did manage to touch on some of her policy plans. Things like tax cuts, healthcare, housing, and abortion. But the real heart of her speech, the message she kept hammering home, was this idea of the promise of America. She's urging people to get out there and vote to fight for that promise.
It's a classic campaign tactic, right? Present yourself as the champion of hope and paint your opponent as the agent of chaos. And given how tight this race is, every single vote could be the deciding factor.
Absolutely. And the article mentions how massive the crowd was, way bigger than anyone expected. Does that hint at a surge in public interest? Could this rally actually translate into more votes for Harris?
It's definitely possible. Large crowds can create a sense of excitement and momentum, which can be pretty contagious. But we also have to remember that rallies don't always reflect the views of the entire electorate. We'll have to wait and see how this energy translates into actual votes on Election Day.
This whole election is a nail-biter, isn't it?
It really is. This speech captures all that intensity perfectly. The drama of the final days of a campaign, the use of history as a weapon, and the hopes and anxieties of a nation on the edge of change.
So much to unpack here. And you know what? We're just getting started. Stay tuned because we've got way more to discuss in part 2 of our deep dive into Kamala Harris's electrifying closing campaign speech. Hit that like button if you're enjoying this, subscribe so you don't miss part 2, and drop a comment below. Tell us what you think about this whole King George III comparison. We want to hear your take. We'll be back after a quick break.
It's fascinating to think about the historical parallel that Harris drew in her speech.
Right. Comparing Trump to King George III is like throwing down the gauntlet. It's a bold move for sure, but is it effective? Does it resonate with voters, or is it just a catchy soundbite?
It definitely grabs your attention, doesn't it? And it's not the first time we've seen politicians use historical figures to bolster their arguments. Sometimes they try to elevate themselves by associating with a beloved figure, and sometimes they try to diminish their opponent by comparing them to a villain from the past.
It's like a rhetorical power play,
Yeah.
using history as a weapon. But can you really compare a modern-day president to a monarch from centuries ago? Is it a fair comparison?
Well, that's where things get tricky. These comparisons can sometimes oversimplify complex issues or even distort historical facts. So let's look closer at Harris's comparison. Was Trump really acting like a petty tyrant? He points to his actions on January 6th, his reported desire to pardon those involved, and his alleged dismissive attitude towards threats against Mike Pence. All of these things feed into the image of a leader who's willing to flout the rules and put his own interests above the country's.
And let's not forget the overall tone of his presidency, which was often marked by, let's just say, a certain lack of decorum. There were the attacks on his opponents, the disregard for norms and traditions, and the constant focus on personal grievances. It's not exactly a picture of presidential restraint.
Exactly. And that's the narrative Harris is trying to build. She's arguing that Trump's behavior shows a disregard for democratic principles and a willingness to abuse his power.
But hold on a second. Wasn't Harris's speech also about offering a positive vision for the future? She talked about policy proposals, the promise of America, and all that good stuff.
You're absolutely right. It wasn't all doom and gloom. Harris didn't just focus on attacking Trump. She also presented herself as a leader who would unify the country, restore faith in government, and fight for the interests of everyday Americans.
So it was a two-pronged approach. Tear down Trump while building herself up is the better alternative. Clever strategy, really.
Very clever. And pretty common in close elections where every vote counts. But does this kind of negative campaigning actually work? Does it persuade undecided voters, or does it just make people dig in their heels and stick with their original choice?
It's like, are you rallying the base or alienating everyone else?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Some studies suggest that negative campaigning can be effective in getting people who already have strong opinions to actually go out and vote. But it can also turn off those who are more moderate or on the fence.
It does feel like our political discourse has become a lot more negative in recent years. Is that a new thing, or have things always been this heated?
That's a topic for a whole other deep dive.
Yeah.
But I think it's safe to say that social media, the 24-hour news cycle, and the increasing polarization of our politics have all contributed to a more divisive and, frankly, nastier public sphere. It's like everyone's shouting at each other and no one's really listening.
Yeah. It's like we've lost the ability to disagree respectfully and have productive conversations about important issues.
Exactly. We need to find a way to bridge those divides, to listen to each other's perspectives and find some common ground. If we don't, it's just going to keep getting worse.
Easier said than done, right?
Definitely. But it's essential if we want to tackle the challenges facing our country and create a more just and equitable society.
So bringing it back to Harris's speech, how do you think it will be remembered? Will it be a footnote, or will it have a lasting impact?
I think it will be seen as a defining moment in this election. It captured the intensity of the race, the stark choices facing voters, and the deep anxieties and aspirations of the American people.
It definitely gave us a lot to think about. So many layers, so much at stake.
It did, and that's what we strive for here at the Deep Dive. We want to spark your curiosity, encourage critical thinking, and help you make sense of the world around you.
Well said. But hold your horses, folks. This deep dive isn't over yet. There's more to explore, more to unpack. Stick around for part 3, where we'll delve into some of the key themes from Harris's speech and what they mean for the future of American politics. And while you're waiting, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Show us some love with a like, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. What resonated with you? What surprised you? We're all ears. We'll be back in a flash.
You know, one of the things that really struck me about Harris's speech was how she kept circling back to this idea of democracy being under threat. It wasn't just a throwaway line, it was a central theme.
Yeah, she definitely painted this picture of the election being a showdown between two totally different visions for America. On one side, you've got Harris, who's all about upholding democratic principles and the rule of law. And then on the other side, you've got Trump, who she portrays as someone who's trying to undermine those very foundations.
And remember, she's delivering this message at the Ellipse, the site of the January 6th attack. That choice wasn't random, it was deliberate and calculated. By bringing up that dark day in American history, she's reminding everyone just how fragile democracy can be.
It's like she's saying, hey, remember this. This is what happens when we take democracy for granted.
Exactly. And she ties that message directly to her policy proposals. Protecting voting rights, strengthening democratic institutions, holding those accountable who attack our democracy. In her view, these are all essential steps in preserving what she calls the promise of America.
So it's not just about fear-mongering. It's about connecting those fears to concrete actions that can be taken.
Right. It's a call to action, an appeal to voters who are feeling disillusioned or anxious about the state of our political system.
Yeah.
It's saying, don't just sit there and work, get out there and do something about it.
But the big question is, did it work? Did her message resonate with enough people to actually make a difference in this crazy close race?
We'll have to wait and see what happens on Election Day. But one thing's for sure, this speech is going to be analyzed and debated for years to come. It offers a glimpse into the deep divisions that exist in our society and the challenges we face in upholding our democratic values. It's a reminder that democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires active participation, critical thinking, and a willingness to engage in civil discourse, even when it's tough.
It's like that old saying, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. We can't just sit on the sidelines and hope for the best. We have to get involved, make our voices heard, and hold our leaders accountable.
Couldn't agree more. And that's what we're all about here at the Deep Dive. We want to equip you with the information and insights you need to be informed and engaged citizens. So keep those brains buzzing, keep asking those tough questions, and most importantly, make your voice heard. Whether it's voting, volunteering, or simply engaging in respectful debate, every action counts.
Well said. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Kamala Harris's electrifying closing campaign speech. We hope you found it insightful, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little bit entertaining. Remember, this is just one piece of a much larger puzzle, and we encourage you to continue exploring these issues on your own. Read more, talk to people, challenge your assumptions, and never stop learning.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating explorations of the issues that matter most. We'll be back soon with another deep dive, so stay curious.